Hello everybody, I am Sonnenberg VA, and I am here to tell you how to do the voice for Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. Which, you are here through one of two ways. No, one of three ways. No, one of two ways. Number one, you already know who I am, and you're here on purpose. Number two, this is YouTube and you found it in your recommended section, or you searched for it. So I guess it is three ways after all. Whatever. So, as you might have noticed, I can sound like Hiccup. And I'm here to tell you how you might be able to sound like Hiccup. This is going to take a moment. Now, the Hiccup voice is spread into a few different steps. All of them take place from in this general area. There's very little actual activity from the diaphragm, except for actually, breathing, which is, in fact, very, very essential. Remember to breathe, okay? Now, in terms of the actual voice, the first part that you're going to have trouble with is the accent. Because when you think Canadian accent, you probably don't think Hiccup, and you probably think a boot, which is not true. We do not say a boot. We say about, or about. Shorten it. That's really the ticket. With the Canadian accent, there are certain vowels that are shortened, certain vowels that are elongated, and it all kind of comes together into the actual way that we talk. I might be thinking, why do I need a Canadian accent? Well, it's because Jay Baruchel's Canadian, and Hiccup, in fact, gets progressively more Canadian as, the movies play out. In the first How to Train Your Dragon movie, the voice directors were actually constantly telling Jay Baruchel to make the mannerisms of Hiccup more American. So a lot of the vowels will be different, and if you're starting from the point of American or imitation American, then you are, in fact, getting a more of a How to Train Your Dragon 1 kind of sound. Now, if you are, say, English or Scottish or Welsh, or I don't know, just anywhere in the British Isles, you're going to have a little bit of an easier time with it, because the way we say our vowels is directly related to the way you guys say your vowels. So what you really need to do is just kind of, the difference between a North American and a Britannic accent is really mostly how nasally and how enunciated certain words and consonants are. So if you're, say, from England and you can do an American accent, you can probably switch it into Canadian pretty easily by just retaining the way you normally say your vowels, but then also switching the way you say your consonants. Boom. Now, Canadian accent, very big part of the actual characterization. Not big if you're first developing the voice. Very big later on. Not so big at the start. Now, the thing is, you're going to be disappointed at the start. Same with every voice. This is just how voices work. Now, I'll give you an example. When you first figure out the actual Hiccup voice, it's probably going to sound something like this. Very squeaky, significantly more high-pitched, without much control. Still sounds something like Hiccup, but not great, right? In fact, when I do Hiccup, there are a few things that I have developed over the past while that I can't really explain. Certain ways I move the muscles in my throat that makes it sound better. Certain tones that I can only pick up because I've listened to myself through my microphone, and that I've practiced. So don't expect to sound immediately like Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. Temper your expectations. Okay? Great. So the first place you're going to want to start is in the throat. Now, when I do Hiccup, funnily enough, it's in about the same place as Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is about here. So, when you're actually doing Hiccup, most of the voice, or most of the actual, like the honk, comes from two places. The way that the throat around this point contracts in, and the way you plug your nose. That's where most of that part of the voice comes from. From there, you get to the pitch, which is something that varies a lot. It can go very squeaky, and it can go pretty low, actually. But for the most part, it is probably going to stay about right there. So if you have perfect pitch, hopefully you'll be able to mimic that pretty well. I do not have perfect pitch. I just do this. Don't ask me how. It just kind of happens. So, once you have the throat and you have the nose, and the nose is very important because that's where a lot of the reverberation is going to come from. So, from there, you move up. And here's also pretty essential, because the tongue is in kind of two places. The back of the tongue is going to be splayed out. So the back of your tongue is either going to be in between or nearly touching your back teeth. Now, that's going to give you a bit more of the actual hiccup sound. That's going to make it sound a bit more like this. It's going to force the actual air through the top of the teeth and out of the mouth instead of out the sides of the mouth like you typically talk. When you're typically talking, it most of the time comes through the entire mouth. Here, you're trying to force the air out of a very specific point. Now, once you have the pitch, you have the back of the mouth, you have the throat, and you have the nose, you bring in the front of the mouth. And that's where a lot of the enunciation is going to come from, because that's the lips and that's the tip of the tongue. From there, you actually get the kind of the squeaky bits, the different stuttering, because it moves very quickly. Hiccup talks pretty quickly. All that kind of happens, and it all projects out the front of the mouth and the front of the tongue, the tip of the tongue, touching the teeth on basically every consonant, while on every vowel, not touching the teeth at all. From there, you kind of get the different noise, and from there, you'll get something that sounds like this. And from that, then, that bass, you're going to be able to move it around. You're going to be able to make it sound significantly more like Hiccup, more like Jay Baruchel, more like really whichever form of Hiccup you want to voice. But the point of this here is that you are going to get a bass voice, and then, well, you're going to need to figure out where to take it. So whether you want to sound like Hiccup in Race to the Edge, or if you want to sound like Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon 3, or Hiccup in How to Train Your Dragon 1, that's all going to sound a little bit different. And that's going to be something that you're going to have to figure out yourself. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. Range is weird. You're not going to be able to do this voice if you don't have the range for it, or if you don't sculpt your range for it. Now, range sculpting is a thing that you can do. It takes effort, it takes practice, it takes time. I do it for a lot of my deeper voices. If I want to do Master Chief, I have to get into that voice. I have to sculpt my voice for it, and then I can essentially turn it into, Sir, finishing this fight. But that took weeks, over a month. So let me put it like this. If you can't do it immediately, do not give up. Practice makes perfect. There is no better example than trying to form a voice that you can do. Know your range. Your range is very important. It will tell you what voices are potentially within your grasp and what aren't. It can even tell you what forms of a voice are potentially in your grasp. Like, I can target James Arnold Taylor's Obi-Wan Kenobi. I can't target Ewan McGregor's. I can't reach that specific sultry bit. There are other forms of deep voices that I can't get. I can't do, say, Alfred Molina, who voices, Vigo from Race to the Edge and Dr. Octopus. I can't get that. There are certain voices that you're not really going to understand why you can't get. But in the end, you're just not going to be able to get a certain element that prevents it from being the best it can be. That's just a fact of the whole job. That's something that I accept all the time in voices that I want to do. Like, I'd love to do George Takei. I'd love to be able to do James Earl Jones. I can't, despite being also able to do Master Chief. You can have a range that can go everywhere. You can have a collection of hundreds of voices if you want to. I don't. I target voices that are rare. I target voices that are hard on purpose, because if I can get those voices, that means I've already molded my voice beyond, well, to that point, which means I've also covered every bit up to that point. It's a progression. Progression is good. But your range is your range. There will be limits. Just keep that in mind. Don't give up. And only accept defeat if you really can't get it. If you're there, if you get even a modicum of the sound, there is still a perfectly good chance that you can get it to the rest of the point. So, hopefully, this video helps you figure out Hiccup. I guess leave a comment if you want me to do another one for another voice. I mean, I've got a catalog. I can do Darth Maul, Palpatine, I don't know, Master Chief. It took a while. That was a real step-by-step process. I can explain that one real easy. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day. God, I suck at looking at cameras. Have you heard of the high dragons? 'Cause I sure have. There's dragon nip over the next hill and they won't shut up about it.